are live. Gentlemen, welcome back to a summer edition of the Mecca Banter podcast, where we're rolling the episodes even after the Premier League season is over. I'll check in first. It's Henry Wind here. You can find me on Twitter at Henry Wind. It's a great week to be a Manchester United fan. If you are a Manchester United fan, or if you're just on Twitter at all, Twitter is absolutely exploding right now about the potential sale of Manchester United, which gets me excited because if you check the timestamps, about 17 minutes ago, I was so terribly not optimistic about the sale of Manchester United. So happy to be here. Dobes, how are you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. It's definitely some good news. Not going to we've been here before. Like we've heard all this different stuff about the takeover before, but happy to be here. There's a massive game that happened this weekend. I don't know if anybody watched the World 11 versus England, the soccer aid. So happy to dive into that game. Talk St. Louis City, but happy to see you fellas.
Hoove, what's going on with you, bro?
Doing well, man. Can't lie. Young Yidit on Twitter. I would love for my club to be sports washed and bought anew to compete again in the world stage. So I'm not even going to sit here and act like I'm going to hold some sort of moral over you guys by not sports washing your club. I hope mine gets sports washed thoroughly. So doing well, though. Doing well.
Happy to have you here as always. And last but not least, Lucas Winkleman, welcome back after taking just a 1 week hiatus. I don't remember what it was, but welcome back to the pod.
Yeah, thanks, boys. I'm stoked to be here. I was sad to miss the Premier League season recap last week. Maybe we can fit in a little tidbit about my club this week. But more than anything, I'm super sad that you and I, Hen, didn't get to watch the Champions League final on Saturday live with all the boys. We were working. Unfortunately, getting updates from you guys during the game was awesome, but it definitely was hurting us a little bit mid job to be relying on text from you guys and trying to decipher exactly what was going on. So was good to rewatch the game and the highlights and everything, but excited to dive into it and everything else we have cooking.
Well, we were working. We were shooting a wedding, and it was funny. The bride and the groom both play Division I soccer down in Florida. Their families are super big soccer people. So I mean, literally during the ceremony, people didn't have their phones out, whatever. But I'm talking the moment the ceremony ended, the groom came barreling down to Lucas and me and said, "What's the score of the game?
What's going on?
Where are we? Yeah, what's going on?" It was right when Lukaku missed that big sitter. But we're gonna dive straight into
Henry. Before we do that, one other thing about that. So when we split up and you went to go photograph the bride and bridesmaids, I went to the groom's getting ready room area, and they had the Champions League pregame on a TV in there. And so I'm trying to record the groom opening up the pre-wedding gift, reading the letter, doing all this, and all his boys are in the next room huddled around the TV watching the pregame analysis and the announcers and everything. It was
great. It's the world's game. That's why we love this sport, bro.
Yeah,
it's why we love this sport.
The fellas love Kate Abdo. Let's not lie. You can't miss
yeah. That's the only reason why they're watching. They don't actually care about it.
And she signed 4 more years, right?
4 more years.
4 more years.
Hey,
God bless her.
We're Americans too, so it's not a reasonable explanation to not tell your wife that we can have the wedding on June 2nd was because of the Champions League. She'd be like, "What?
What do you mean?" He's a Chelsea fan. He knew that he wasn't going to be in the final, so he didn't really care about when they were booking it. So with that being said, let's dive into the Champions League final game. We talked about the preview about a week ago. We had Manchester City against Inter Milan. All of us expected a Manchester City win, but the game was a little bit closer than maybe what we had expected. Gentlemen, Dobes and Hoove, I'll let you all kick it off. What do you think of the game and what was the overall thoughts?
So, before I'll start with the game, and then we can have sort of a separate conversation about legacy, what this means. Let's sort of talk about the game first. So about an hour before the game, when the lineups were released, I texted Butch and I said, "Did Pep overthink it?" And he said, "Absolutely not." And so the first 10 sort of 15 minutes go by. City didn't necessarily get rolling yet. 25 minutes still the entire time. I think Inter's the better team. Yes, City had sort of like one or two half chances early on in that game. Nothing sort of like concrete. And I thought that Inter came out and the game plan was absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I don't necessarily mean that like Inter was creating chance after chance themselves, but they had clearly took Man City off of their rhythm. They added an extra man in the midfield, like sort of watching their back three transition into a back four and sort of eliminate Haaland being able to take any of the center backs in, having a CDM sort of slide over. Like City was just rattled. And to me, I think that arguably, I do think there's an argument like that could be potentially the best right back in English history, who's been the most consistent player, who's been such an integral part to how they play. Like leaving Kyle Walker out, it paid off for them in the end by winning, but I definitely think that it was a major sort of key to them not hitting that rhythm, not being able to get forward as much because we see just how important he is. Now, with that being said, City was never really like challenged too much, to where Inter couldn't get too much going forward. Like Dzeko was sort of non-existent. Laturo had a few sort of half chances, a couple where I think he should have passed where he shot. And truthfully, it just came down to sort of that one like defining moment of Rodri with a beautiful sort of curler around two Inter defenders. I thought the game overall was it like sort of like a neutral, like soccer nut, like heaven. Like it was two very tactical teams trying to figure each other out. City couldn't break them down. Holland was absolutely non-existent, which just sort of shows how good this City team is. So you got to just sort of tip your hats to them completing the treble, because I do think that even though they weren't great, like in that game, they've been the best team in the world for the last 3 or 4 months. Like you can't sit here and say they don't deserve to win, because they have. At the end of the day, they didn't look pretty, but they got it done.
Yeah, your point about the game plan for sure. They even mentioned it on the commentary. Like Inter definitely wasn't at their sharpest, but you could tell that they were playing the game that they wanted to play. That City was doing everything that they thought City was going to do, and that opened up the chances for, some of those kind of quick counters. And the first half, I thought, it was a cup final. At the end of the day, that's a lot of times what these cup finals look like. It is that one defining moment. Mm-hmm. You can sit there and overthink and plan tactic after tactic. But if no one's willing to stretch themselves enough to give up a goal, then, it's difficult to see too many of them. So, Rodri is class. I think that what is what it is. He had a great finish. But yeah, it was wild not seeing, Inter tuck one of the chances that they had. Mm-hmm. They had enough.
Lukaku.
How can you? I actually feel bad for him. I'm not even going to lie. I feel bad for him because the way he fell out in the World Cup with Belgium.
Yes.
And then to turn around on the next biggest stage and do almost the exact same thing. Like he just had to not head it at the keeper or not, miss.
Get in the way.
Get in the way. He did it 5 to 6 specific examples, I remember, in their World Cup, where they lost. I don't even remember who they played. And he did it again. So like at that point, I was like, what else do you do? He's doing almost everything right except the final product. Like he's getting in great spaces. He links up with Lautaro really, really well and creates for himself and is a big man in the box on corners, and he gets to the balls. They just don't go in the net. Like I feel bad for him. I think he's going to be fine. I've heard he said he wants to stay at Inter. We'll see how that's just going to be a whole nother
shit show,
drama, saga, shit show for everybody involved. But I at the end of the day, I bet on Man City, so I pulled away with like $30 or something. But would have loved to
31.
Would have loved to see Inter at least tie it. That game was begging for extra time, and would have loved to see that. But City's, we all called it. We all said it. We were like, there's just no way where they lose. And And
I
there
think-
was, but it wasn't.
I
It
think
didn't happen.
the guy we have to mention, and we texted about him like basically the entire game, is John fucking Stones.
Yeah.
Bro.
Because Rodri wasn't man of the match, or excuse me, Stones wasn't man of the match. Rodri was, and I get it because he scored the big goal. But John Stones was a fucking baller. Like I'm talking about,
Revelation.
he was on a field with like arguably like two of the, or if not the three of the best center midfielders on the entire planet, and he was better than both of them. Like he was
Mhm.
100% better than both of them. I don't know if you guys have seen that sort of like cool little TikTok from like 4 or 5 years ago when Stones joined
Yeah.
City, and the press was sort of giving Pep shit about him, and Pep just looks at him. He was like, John Stones has more balls than every single person in this entire room. I think that sort of speaks to Pep, because John Stones, when he left and joined City, was a very solid center back, but now he's like turning, he's cutting, he's going one-on-one with players. He had the most take-ons completed in the Champions League final. John fucking Stones.
He was getting out of the most absurd spaces. Bro.
Insane.
By himself, there'd be a triangle of inner players around him. He'd feint one way, roll a ball backwards, be out of it, no problem, find a pass out. That one where he was dribbling up the line and beat like 3 guys. Who is this Englishman?
Like
Like
I
that-
think
He's the only
there's-
only one in that game who completed 100% of his dribble attempts.
insane.
And the last person to do that was Lionel Messi in 2015 against Juventus.
Yikes.
I think there's an argument, genuinely. This isn't recency bias. Like John Stones is top 10 players in the world, like easy, in my
Oof.
opinion.
Yeah,
Like-
I mean that it's a good shout. I mean I remember when he left Everton and he did come to City. Everyone was talking about how he's a center back that can also play center midfield, but like at that time that really hadn't been a thing. Then he fell off the face of the earth for like 3 years, and like now we're finally seeing like that potential, come alive. Watching this replay back, watching the game back, and then watching the highlights as well. I don't know how Inter didn't score it in the last 10 minutes. I mean, they had every chance that there was. But also, Hoover, you said it earlier, but like Lautaro Martinez like should have passed the ball a couple of more times, should have, done a couple of things different. And these Champions League finals, they come down to moments, like you can think back to big moments, or even just like World Cup finals, Iniesta scoring in the World Cup final, 1-0 game where it's back and forth the entire game.
Yeah.
But I think City was dominant. You got to see like the post-game conversations with like Grealish and Haaland, and both of them saying how they didn't play like up to their standards. They played like shit, but they still like came away with the win. Is this the best Manchester City team we've ever seen? Even though I know this is the treble winning year, is this the best we've ever seen Manchester City?
I think it's the most complete. I don't think that there's been times in years where like there's like different positions that you could definitely say that like, bringing on Jesus, like Jesus is not the level of like Aguero. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that this is the most complete team from top to bottom, maybe that we've ever seen ever. Every single position, they have a world-class sub. Like you know what I mean? And not just world-class subs, but like some of these players are the best in their world at their position. And then you could argue that the guy that comes in for him, arguably, if he probably played in that same spot, could be in that same conversation as well.
Or starts at most other Premier League clubs or anywhere.
Everywhere.
And I don't know another club that can say that right now.
No one can.
And if we want to start talking about their legacy now, we can a little bit.
Let's do it.
But I think that this, like legacy aside, like to take out the FIFA, like just on-field product. Like, I don't know if we've seen something to this level, like ever. Yes, there's those like prime Barcelona teams, but like, I do think that like they also had Lionel Messi, like the shape that Pep has these guys playing, the way that he has them playing is, I don't know if we've ever seen that. Now, the unfortunate piece of it, so like not unfortunate, is that there is all this sort of stuff that comes with it. There's the 115 allegations. There's the 1 point whatever or 2 point whatever billion dollars it's spent to get there. That's why I think it's two different sides, because I think on paper, watching them, they can be the best team of all time, but they should be because they're the most expensive team of all time. So yeah, I'm curious your guys' thoughts.
I think I agree with the completeness factor. Like you dive deep on some of those Barca teams, and like they were just covered up front by the best players. Like they didn't need much depth because all of those guys on that team were so good. But this team, and the way that the world of football in general has even changed in the last 10 years, you're still playing more games. So, and when you take comparisons from teams in previous history, it all has to come with a little bit of a grain of salt, because no one, like, the treble is getting harder and harder and harder to win every year, because there's more and more games, and who knows, a fucking World Cup in the middle of your season. Like,
True.
there's so many factors. So I think I completely agree in the most complete team of all time. And I think, this is another tip to Pep. He's transforming guys. Like Ikanji's come in and just been a rock, and we've seen a John Stones remontada. Like, where some of these guys who have always been considered great players or good players, or one or two of them, like they're getting better. Everyone's getting better. The team plays the same way, not necessarily the same way, but the team plays with each other. And it doesn't matter who's on the field. You can swap every single one of those pieces, and one of those guys fills in. So my cousin texted me earlier this week. We were talking about the game, and he says, Man City's B team, every single player, you flip the 11, Man City's B team is winning some sort of European in the top 7,
100%.
top
Yeah.
7 at least in the English Premier League. Like, that's an obscene thing to acknowledge, and it is. It's the Saudi Arabian, backed, funding and stuff. So you take everything with a grain of salt. I think you just enjoy it, because at the end of the day, Dobes, you've said this before, no one's going to be able to compete with anyone like that in the next 5 years, because until you are bought out by a Qatari, a Saudi, one of these big money moves. So you just kind of have to accept it, enjoy it. They were unbelievable to watch, and it was just a generally expected result every game that they took the field, and it almost always was. So good on them.
I think the legacy thing is a little bit interesting, though. Like, not to throw shade, but Dobes, your background is of the Manchester City celebration, if you want to throw celebration in quotations.
I saw some tweets that may have been, I've seen some pretty crazy scenes from Manchester. So, credit.
I just feel like, Pep is our generation Sir Alex. I think that he's the best coach that is actively coaching right now. Whether he's better than Sir Alex, we'll never be able to go toe to toe. But I think that, also we're he came to City in like 2016, something like that, somewhere in there. We're 7 years into Pep's Manchester City project, just now winning the Champions League. We're so many years into this. Obviously with United, we need a lot of guys to replace our squad. City adds like 1 or 2 guys every season that are top class. So we're seeing like 6-7 years into this project where they have that B team that could beat any one of our A teams. Like, we're seeing that. I don't know if the legacy thing, something tells me that like 10 years down the line, I don't think that this treble is going to be like standing the test of time. And maybe that's like a terrible take, and maybe I will eat my words in 10 years time. I just feel like between the fan base, between everything that it's taken to like get to this stage, I just don't think that it's going to be like as significant as it could be, or maybe as it should be. I don't know if it's going to stand in the legacy side of things.
I think it's just that, like, sort of, it's so weird, because if you look at like people like comparing the 2 English trebles, because there's been 2 of them, but then you look at like Spain, there's been a ton of them. Like, Bundesliga, there's been a ton of them. I think sort of the difference is this is like, I mean, you and I have both said it. It's almost like this to me was like sort of that complete realization that like it's money, you're never going to like get there.
Yeah.
Like you still have to have the coach to be able to make that happen on the field. You still have to buy the correct, like United have probably spent more money than City, but we've spent it terribly. So you still have to have all of those intangibles as a club. But I do think that it's sort of that first time where it's like, if somebody's going to win a treble again, it's not going to be through youth players. It's not going to be through like you're going to have to buy and have those world-class players, and your club is going to have to be run correctly from top to bottom. It may come out that there's those 115, whatever does happen with them. Like, I think it's like we've talked about, and I've been on the other side of the argument where it's like, these fans are never going to forget this. These players are never going to forget this shit. Like, this treble is set in stone. It's happened. Yes, the 115 may like happen. It's a great excuse for us rival fans, but I think it's just sort of the official, like changing of the guard to where it's like, if you want to compete for multiple trophies in England, you have to move like a Real Madrid, a Manchester City from here on out.
Yeah. It's hard, like, looking at that realization. And I mean, for Lucas and Hoover, I don't want to speak for the both of you, but like, you two aren't run that way and potentially aren't going to be run that way any time near. Obviously, Levy is who he is, and Arsenal has like their own, ideology of how they want to do that. Now with United potentially being bought by Qatar here soon, that does give me at least a little bit of hope. But again, I think that it's going to take several years before we're back into that.
Dude, years, a new stadium, a new training ground. Like,
fair point to all of that. Of like,
they are
meeting all the intangibles.
they're a decade ahead of us.
What a
and they're still going to get better.
That's going to be. What a day that's going to be too when you guys move out of Old Trafford and
crazy
into a new stadium.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
It'd be nutty. Now, obviously, coming off the heels of the Champions League that also had a World Cup in the middle of this season, where does that leave you three with the Ballon d'Or? There's probably two like major shout outs for the Ballon d'Or. There's Haaland and there's Messi. Probably. I don't know if there's really an argument for many other people in that. Like, I think there's people that'll take the podium, obviously, but like, I don't know if there's anyone else that really is the front runner other than those two. Where does this leave you now?
With the GOAT.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the guy scored 50 goals or whatever it was. I think we come back to the same conversation a lot of, would he do it on other teams? Is he instrumental enough elsewhere? I do think him not playing in the World Cup is not a slight against him, but I think that, has to play a role in the standings and votes with the Ballon d'Or too. And the other guy that he's going against won it in spectacular fashion and had a incredible season with his club, at which underperformed and was really like a pretty toxic and negative atmosphere and environment. So we're looking at the guy who scored 20 goals and had 20 assists and a World Cup, or no, or the guy who barely showed up to the semifinal and final of the Champions League, but did score 50 goals in the process. Like, you weigh those out to me every other year that, Lionel Messi's not alive, Haaland wins this, but there's just levels, right?
There's a ton of players that can sit there and say that. Who've hit all the points. To me, I've said it before, like, there'll never be just the eye test. There'll never be a single time where I can sit there and watch both the two players play and say that Haaland is a better soccer player than Lionel Messi, like, ever. Then you add the 20 and 20, then you add the World Cup, then you add the league title. Like, who said it right? Like, any other year, Haaland wins, but like, Messi proved this year that he's still the GOAT. He's going to get his sixth and going to be presenting it at Miami in August, which will be fucking wild.
Insane.
We're going down. We're going down for the presentation.
Should we?
The Inter Miami faithful, the team that's been with them for years.
$6 grand for tickets or something.
Yeah, ridiculous.
You guys kind of mentioned it, but World Cup winner, Golden Ball winner, 1 goal contribution per game in his domestic league in League One. I think beyond that, City, like, Haaland shattered the goal scoring record in the Premier League this season, broke a lot of records, but City's treble was, like we just talked about, was so much more of a team effort than Messi's season was, I think, as a whole. We talked about, would other players have scored that many goals being in Haaland's position? Probably not quite as many. But it definitely made it a lot easier, him having the guys that he did have feeding him balls to the back post or sending him through balls. I think that I think that Messi also came up more clutch in crucial games
I think
this
so
year
too.
especially in
Yeah.
the World Cup. We've talked about it in a handful of big games for Manchester City where Haaland, you know, and this is what goes back to us talking about how he's not yet a complete striker in comparison to some of the other guys, Harry Kane, other guys that we've talked about on the podcast before. I think there's no doubt he'll win at least one in the future, but this season, Dobes, like you just said, from a complete striker perspective, I don't think it's as tough of an argument as some people are making it out to be.
It's okay though, because Holland pulled defenders out of position, which is the main job of a striker.
It's tough.
Right?
I will say towards the end of the season, we started to see him develop his hold up play a lot better than he did the first 3/4 of the season. So I think that we're starting to see glimpses of him, training towards becoming a more complete striker, not as one dimensional. But as far as the season as a whole, I think Messi is going to be one of the easiest bets across all of soccer this past year.
Yeah.
Fair. Well, transitioning, gentlemen, outside of Europe and into the homeland of St. Louis City SC. Disappointing game over the weekend, if I do say so myself. A 1-1 tie against the LA Galaxy, who are absolute buns, by the way. They are not a good team. And we drop points. This game had us feeling a lot of different ways. Thoughts, feels.
Giacchini is class. What a goal.
What a goal.
Yeah, that goal was ridiculous.
Are you kidding me?
That was, goal of the season contender. I think that's the most impressive goal we've scored this season as a team.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of beating the drum that Lowen's free kick was kind of a fluke and poor goalkeeping, but that's a worldie, 35 yards. No, that was an insane finish, and I was on the end that he scored it directly in line with the goal, and I knew exactly what he was about to try and do. Like, that ball bounced in front of him. It was low. I knew exactly what he was about to try and do. And
the balls to try that.
Yeah, dude.
the ball, it was wet, bro. It was raining. That was not lucky. That was purely intentional. He 100% intended to do that. I thought that was a great finish. That was so fun. We were losing our minds. Like, it was so much more fun in the stadium when they score in front of you, dude. Like, unbelievable. But so overall as a whole, you don't want to sit on one guy and say that he was the reason. And it's a full game of football. There's a lot of moments that happen. Other chances could have been taken, i.e. Indy Vasilev, who went on an asinine run and then just decided to kick the ball at the keeper's chest.
Yeah.
But Jake Nerwinski got
Nerwinski, bro.
And I'm just hypercritical of wingbacks. I always have been, and I don't think my assessment in Jake has changed or will change. I think he is more solid.
You've been saying since day one.
I knew he was going to be a problem. Like, I knew our wingbacks are going to be a problem because a lot of times the wingbacks are, are they like the weakest players on the field? Like, if you want to get down and look down at like technicality,
on our team,
he's our best wingback. Like, he's our best wingback option right now.
For sure. And he's a glorified collegiate center back. Yeah. My man's is making league minimum, and he's replacing the guy that we brought in on an expansion team to play left back. That's not a good sign. So, it was the two wing backs that I was worried about from the beginning. And Nerwinski just kind of, he doesn't do anything that really impresses me. He defends well. I don't think he's a poor defender. I do think he's out of position a lot, so he makes reckless tackles. I think he likes to get sucked up front while also simultaneously not necessarily producing a lot, being in those advanced positions. And then to get the ball where you're at and and panic. And, what, like the first thing you're taught as a kid is to just kick it. No nonsense. Take Tim Parker's, take him as
Playbook.
example and get the ball out, bro. That sucked to watch. And then it sucked even more to watch that piece of shit Douglas Costa celebrate like a lunatic in front of the home fans, which rubbed me the wrong way. And frankly, LA, they are all whole team's on my shit list. It was the worst refereeing I've seen from an MLS game yet, which says a lot because they've all been miserable. And LA were actually on the ground 20% of the game. They felt that every time there was even marginal contact and they'd throw themselves to the ground, the ref would call it. So at some point you're like, you do it, start taking advantage of how strenuous he's being on these calls and, take some contact and roll over. But that's not how they play. That's not how they want to play. That's not how the fans want them to play. So they tried to stick with their way and, it's one individual error, but I feel a little bit better about it than you guys. I thought that they were going to play really well into our style, and they did. It was a lot of sit back, wait, get those balls in, dangerous positions and run. So one or two more chances that they should have finished, should have been 3 points. But you move, nothing else you can do. You didn't give up anything else. They started to look like they were playing for the tie after they did give up the goal, which sucks. But Nashville next week.
Do we know when Klaus is back yet?
Frustrating.
No, never.
Because
he's never coming back.
Because we just saw news this past week that they extended, his potential comeback time to a couple more weeks. So
I have no idea.
I'm a little curious as to like the switch of like the wingers, like if you look at like the two games, like I'm not necessarily counting the FC Dallas game on Wednesday as like our form. If you look at the past two games, like Pompeo started two of them, like Stroud started one on the other side and Ostrak started on the other side. And then all of a sudden we have Almond Stroud.
Yeah.
Which it did make a whole lot of sense to me. And our two wingers are like so frustrating to me. It's not even funny because even when they do have the ball in space, nobody takes anybody on 1v1, tries to get to the byline or tries to make something happen. So I don't know, that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but if we're more clinical, we're sitting here talking about us probably winning 3-0. Like genuinely, like don't want to put it on Indiana because I did think he was probably our best player. But like if he makes that pass instead of just fucking firing it straight at the goalie, like you said, like we go up 2-0, we probably make a few subs, maybe get a third, and the Galaxy are done. But we've sort of seen it as I've learned about the MLS this year, just sort of like nothing is predictable in this league at all.
No.
Like even from like positive stuff that City has done, like beating Cincy how we did, and they've been so good. Like, so if you don't take your chances, it's very likely that the other team will have a chance. And unfortunately, the Galaxy took it.
Yeah, so, and in the grander scheme of things, like I think for the rest of the league, other teams massively drop points as well. Talk about the unpredictability. Sporting beat LAFC 4-0 like over the weekend, which makes no sense at all. But you bring up a great point with the wingers, and I think I had my fingers bleeding from texting this group so many times in the first half talking about how Stroud is going to be the bane of my existence. There's just like 5 different opportunities in the first 30 minutes of the game where he just should have done pretty much the opposite of what he did. I mean, he missed the wide open goal there from the ball over the top. He could have settled it and then tapped it into the goal, but he tried to like one time it out of the air and it was closer to a throw in than it was to the goal. He should have squared it. Instead, he shot it, and then he should have shot it, and instead he tried to cut it back. It just seems like he sometimes just makes up his mind before the play happens, and then regardless of what the defense does, he just does the thing that he was committed to doing, which can't be how you do that. That's not what it is. And to be fair, like the guy just wasn't really in the game at all. The first half he had no opportunities, second half no opportunities, but it like goes to show that LA just kind of they stopped the momentum of play with all of these touch fouls. Like it reminded me of watching like an NBA game when guys like touch your wrist and it's like a foul. There was one that really got us heated towards the end of the game. Bartlett made like a tear down the right wing going forward. He ended up pressuring the center back, our center back, pressuring their center back in their own box. The guy tried to cut it back. Bartlett had the step on him and literally didn't touch the guy, and the guy just fell over, and they called it a foul when like we worked our dicks off to like win the ball high up the field. Like that shit was just so frustrating to watch. And Tobes, I agree with you that if we were a little bit more clinical, we'd be sitting here being like, yep, 3-4-0. We played the way that we played and we got the win. But I think just that drop off in quality when you miss those chances, we leave teams in it, and it's going to come back to bite us in the ass.
Shout out Parker too. Like,
dude, he was amazing.
As much as the no nonsense we kind of hate sometimes when he does just like clear the ball out of bounds and take care of it. Like, he was fantastic. On the goal, it's kind of like that miscommunication where it's like, is the left back going to pick him up or is Parker going to pick him up? And he kind of falls in between them. But I also think a lot of that is just like Douglas Costa, like being like, hey, I have one fabulous moment in me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm going to whip in this ball more so than it was like mismarking. But like both Hebert and Parker were both great in my opinion as well.
They were great. Parker, more and more, I am seeing so many Tim Ream-esque moments to where his positioning is flawless. Yeah. He is not fast. He is not going to beat any of the players on the pitch in a 1v1 race, but he finds himself doing just enough physically to either set these guys off, get in front, or he takes up these runs that he knows where the ball is going to be next. And he gets there shoulder to shoulder. And if it's shoulder to shoulder with him, Parker, you've got nothing. Like, my man's going to put you on your ass and it's going to be clean. He's going to pick the ball up. The goal that we scored came directly from Tim. And you pointed it out to Dobes when we were talking about it at the game. It was exactly that. He was probably about to get beat in a 1v1 bearing down on Berkey. He gets a step, throws a shoulder, guy gets absolutely bodied. Me and my buddies are up there like flexing in the stands, like screaming at Tim Parker. And he turns around, he picks his head up, he takes himself 20 yards up the field, finds a ball up wide, and then boom, transition, we're in. That was spectacular. And that's like what you dream of as a center back, is to be the catalyst into the goal. You're not going to score a ton. So, and you can see it. He and Berkey and Hebert and Bartlett, I don't know about Jake as much, but they all get gassed up when they make some big time stops, and they love it. They love defending, and Berkey wants his clean sheets. So, it's super encouraging to see that, and I am ecstatic to watch Nilsson slide in for Bartlett here once he gets healthy. He had his first training session with the squad last week. I guess he was in 20 minutes or so of a scrimmage. So I'm hoping that we've got a Rolls Royce just sitting in the garage right now, and he's going to come out and look fantastic next to Mr. No Nonsense. So we've got high hopes. The Klaus thing sucks.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do wrong? Was that a training staff thing? Was that a medical issue to where they let him go too early and he strained it again? That's a bummer. Whenever you see guys get ticked back further and further on an injury without having actually played to re-aggravate it, there's something happened. Like,
I do think the positive is that like we went through that little blip for like, was it 2 weeks? Like, right, we lost him, where it was like we looked like shit. Like, we've sort of figured it out a little bit. Like, we definitely shouldn't have lost to FC Dallas. We just looked like two bad mistakes. Definitely should have had 3 points. So I think there is some positive that like we are putting on ourselves and chances to win games. Now it's just coming down to like sort of executing until we do get him back. And then he adds that like just extra element that makes us even better.
Yeah. So the transfer window for the MLS opens up on July 5th. I wish we knew the MLS like we know Europe, and we'd be able to say, yep, here's a left back, here's a right back that we should be bringing into the lineup. But I don't know anything like that. But I have to think that we are looking at wing backs as where to bolster this squad.
Yeah, I mean, where else? Another striker maybe, and you don't
Bobby
have to
Firmino.
Bobby,
Mbappe's free.
Mbappe's ready.
Yeah, he's ready.
What better place to come than St. Louis? Join your buddy Messi in the league. Neymar might come too. Who knows?
Would be
Yeah.
so lit.
I would love to see a sort of attacking wingback because I think that gives us a little bit of a different dimension. Like I keep thinking like we could play three at the back, but we don't have those guys that can play wide that are good enough at getting forward. I think are good enough both ways. So like somewhat of like an attacking wingback that's defensively sound, and then somewhere between like a 9-10 / like winger hybrid. I think we almost need another like Giacchini, somebody else.
Yeah,
that
we
can
need
sort of-
another attacker.
Somebody else that can do that role, can be dynamic. He can play out wide if you need him to. He can play as a 9, plays a 10. So somebody else like that, I think.
God, I mean, you're just literally talking about Roberto Firmino, which is it just makes so much sense.
Bro, he could play. Dude, he could. I don't even want to like dream about it. Like he could play as a 10 behind Klaus with like Giacchini out wide, or he could play. He could play as your 9. Like Klaus could even play as a 10. They could play 2 up top. Like the possibility.
Well, I mean, it would also serve like the really narrow winger, like a 4-3-2-1 almost, where there's like 2 like more inverted wingers. I don't know. It could be a lot of things.
And Bobby's like built to like be good in the counterattack. Like he's built to like get forward. He's built to combine real quick. Like he's built for how we play.
He's built for this, baby. Gentlemen, we're going to end tonight's segment with a little bit of transfer talk. Now, in the middle of the summer, transfer rumors are swirling for all of our clubs. We're not going to dive into all of the transfer rumors because I think, 1, that would take too much time, and 2, we'd look like complete asses in August when none of these rumors actually actualize. But I do have one question for each of you, which is, what is the rumor that you are most excited about in relation to your club?
I'll go because there's only one and it makes sense. Give me David Raya. The Brentford keeper is rumored. He has already told Brentford he will not be re-signing. Hugo Lloris said last week that he has played his last game with Spurs. Great. Thanks, buddy. Club legend.
I actually didn't know he said that.
I didn't know he said it either.
Yeah, I didn't know he said that.
He came out in an interview, I think, with Liquid.
Small club. No one really talks about him,
Equip.
Liquid. Classic fucking French guy. But yeah, he it was nice. It was like, I can't believe, I've had an unreal time here being the captain of this club, blah, 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 blah. But he's like, yes, I believe I have played my last match for this club. And I don't know, I don't think he really informed a ton of people, but I don't think anyone was that mad about it or B, all that concerned. Like, we definitely don't have Forster was great this year. I don't want him to be the starting keeper next year. And then David Raya comes out, says he's not re-signing with Brentford. He's got 1 more year on his deal. They've got a 40 million price tag on him. And his agent's basically laughing in Brentford's face because he will stay for another year on his current salary and leave for free in the summer if they really want that to happen, is pretty much what the agent's been saying. So we've got a very, very talented keeper who's good with his feet and kind of is, a reasonable replacement to your club captain in that role. I say you do it, pay the price tag, get it done. If Ange wants him, great. It's the only real transfer rumor that I have right now that I'm even remotely excited about because everything else I've heard has been miserable. So something that makes sense for the club. And in classic Spurs fashion, if it makes sense, they probably won't do it. And we will not have David Raya at the club. But I think that's a good signing. I would love to see it. Who knows?
In Ange we trust, right?
Yeah, I still don't know how to say his last name. So
you'll get there, baby. You'll get
one of
there.
these days. Yep.
Dobes, what about you, man? What are you excited about on the United front?
I'm like really not trying to do recency bias right now. Like it's like literally as we're sitting here, I'm like refreshing my Twitter timeline.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do 2. I'm gonna do a realistic one, and then I'm gonna do one that depends on something else. Rumor Mbappe.
If your club spot, yeah.
Rumor Mbappe. Rumor. Best rumor I've ever read is Kylian Mbappe. Will it happen? I doubt it, but it's not a coincidence that directly as the moment, like within a few moments that There's rumors that a Qatar bid has been accepted. Now Mbappe doesn't want to come back to PSG. So yeah. Take that with a grain of salt. Now I think the one that I'm excited about that sort of just started to come over the last 2 days, and I don't think you're going to be, or you're going to think this one. It's Onana.
Yeah.
As our goalie. So we've been linked with him over the past couple of days. De Gea hasn't signed a new contract. There was rumors that he was close to signing it a few months ago. Now it looks that once we finally got to the summer, that Ten Hag has sort of made that decision. He also has to sit there and watch these goalies and be like Onana was arguably like Inter's best player.
Dude, he was really good.
Not just because he was making saves, but because of how good he was in distribution for them.
It's insane.
And so I think he more so than we're looking at Costa, of course. But I do think that just he's a cheaper, absolutely phenomenal option that Ten Hag has had before. So definitely, I think he's one I'm most excited. I couldn't say Mount, could I?
Do it. You won't.
No.
You won't say it.
Oh,
You
no.
can't
You
say
won't
it.
say it.
Oh, no.
Nick will come back on this pod and
World class, Mason Mount.
You
You said world class. Well, I love it. Project Mbappe is on, baby. Lucas.
Dare to dream.
Declan Rice for me. I feel like it's not that much of a rumor because he's so damn close to it being official. But I've seen 100 mil plus. I've seen 90 mil plus add-ons. I've seen 92 mil plus add-ons. So who knows exactly what that fee is going to look like. But I am stoked to have him in that beautiful home kit next year. He's gonna transform our midfield, and I know that we've all talked about him the last several years of how much we like seeing him play. So I apologize that you guys are gonna have to hate him moving forward, but
Yeah.
I'm so stoked to have him. And then beyond that, if we can finish this Caicedo bid as well and get that submitted, we'll see what happens. I also perusing Twitter earlier today and continually refreshing it too. Like Dobe said, supposedly we're front runners for Diaby right now too, which would be interesting. And all of this is good news to me because I think that squad depth is the name of the game for us, but not just signing backups. Signing starters is in terms of squad depth is big for me this summer. So Rice and Caicedo primarily. Saliba just inked a new 4-year deal. Supposedly United and Bayern were the two teams also interested in him, but happily turned those down to sign 4 more years with us. And honestly, I think that might be our biggest signing this summer is re-signing him. But
I do think Declan Rice, as much as I hate it, I do think it's kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
That'd be the worst.
Yeah, I don't know why he wants to do that, but I do think it's inevitable. Which would be a fantastic signing. He's everything you want in a player and more.
Yeah.
In terms of attitude off the field, everything you kind of want. He'd be a fantastic.
Yeah, we saw the videos of him celebrating with West Ham after the Conference League trophy, and
legendary.
He just legendary. Like you can just tell he's such a good guy on top of all that. And I know he loves his English boys, Ramsdale, Saka, all those guys too. So I think it'll be
what an upgrade from Thomas Partey. Just the complete opposite moral human being.
I wasn't even going to say anything. I was going to stay out of it.
Oh no, bring it, dude.
You said bring.
I was going to say, he's like, yeah, he's going to revamp our whole midfield. I was like, yeah, because your current center midfielder's a rapist.
He's a rapist. My biggest rumor that I'm excited about, honestly, this might be a cop-out answer. It's Qatar. I think that I was talking to
bro.
Dude,
I think that Hoove and I
bro.
are genuinely jealous of that. I know that we're getting that 200 mil this summer, so maybe we don't need the oil money. But I know both of us. I would love to get Kroenke the fuck out of my club.
Bro,
Daniel-
Crocky literally tonight is gonna win like his like third professional sports title in like the last year or 2
Yeah.
years.
He's chilling.
So you know what?
Chilling.
You know what next year is going to be then.
Hopefully not.
Dude, I saw that Spurs and Daniel Levy and the ownership board have spent $1 billion plus on infrastructure, training facilities,
Yep.
all of that stuff. Total net transfer amount since then, 30 mil we have spent on players, either with the incoming, outgoing of the net value. We have collectively spent
That's
30 million,
crazy, bro.
via incomings, outgoings. So yeah, definitely would love like bring in the Sheiks, bro. Bring in the Sheiks.
It said
I'll do
that whatever the owner of City went to the Champions League final. It was his first game in 13 years or whatever it was. I was like, Jesus, man, that's just so bad. But legitimately, the rumor that has me the most excited is Qatar, and the reason that I say that is this is the most positive that we've seen Twitter since we announced the sale a couple of months ago. It seems like things are happening. Dobes, breaking news over there. What's the word?
I don't know what to believe, bro. We have the chairman of the Qatari Business Council just tweeted congratulations to Jassim bin Hamid bin Jassim on his acquisition of Manchester United. Taken it with a grain of salt, but if it comes out it's true later, I'm taking off work tomorrow.
Has Fabrizio tweeted it yet?
That's what I'm saying. I'm refreshing Fabrizio
real.
right now.
I need the Ornstein tweet to hit.
Yeah, give me the
Ornstein.
Athletic
That's what I
now.
need.
Now. But the reason why it's the most exciting thing for me is it's been, I was so negative this morning because, no rumor that we're even remotely linked to matters because we don't have an owner. And it's just going to further perpetuate the bullshit that's happening. I just think that if Qatar ends up buying the whole club, what's crazy, I was like reading today that if like, let's say they buy it right now, they say, yep, it's bought. This is like funny to think about. You think of like a Venmo, like they have 3 days to transfer the funds.
Yo, here's
Like,
your
Lucas,
bill.
yeah, like you were talking about buying your house, Lucas, and when you saw all of that money like leave your bank account, you were like, ugh. Can you imagine $6 billion leaving your bank account?
It's nothing for these guys though, and they've been buying and selling businesses and supercars and
Countries,
islands,
yeah.
whatever you want to. So like this is nothing.
I texted Hen. The reason that I was so optimistic about Qatar is because these guys do this like not to make money; they do it for prestige.
Exactly.
Like I texted Hen. I was like, they're not going to lose a bidding war to anybody. Like it's just they don't want that reputation. They don't want that to get out there because they just like you see with like Liv and stuff going on. Like Qatar wants this for the prestige of they own Manchester United and they're going to do everything they can to pump money into it.
Yep.
We'll see. Well, gentlemen, that concludes tonight's episode. We have Nashville at the weekend for St. Louis City. We'll see what happens with Manchester United on the sale. As always, follow us on all of the social media. If the sale goes through this week, I'm sure Connor Sindobri is going to make copious amounts of TikToks until he's blue in the face of describing his feelings. And I hope that Andy Hoover makes one too, describing his feelings about the ownership of Manchester United. So with that, fellas, good job tonight and cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers, fellas.